All right, now, are we all here?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm good to go.
Here. Yeah. We're good to go. John's here.
Good to go.
Today's episode.
What's
it about?
What are we talking about?
We're going to talk about stir frying. It's time to stir fry, to throw a little fresh veggies and some great meats in a frying pan and see where we go from there.
Let's do this.
Okay.
Do you ever wonder where your food comes from? That's what got us started on this adventure.
We talk to everyone we can to answer the question, what makes the Comox Valley food scene so special? Join us on our culinary exploration of this edible valley.
Well, okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Edible Valley podcast.
Yeah.
I'm, as always, Chef Jonathan Frazier.
I'm the co-host, Darren Howlett.
And I am the producer, William Stringer.
And today, we're going to get into stir frying.
Yeah. First, I just want to mention, though, I think that it's worth noting we're adding another dimension to what we're doing today. We've started on video. We were playing around with that before a couple of days ago or a couple episodes ago. This is us taking it up another step, and we'll probably take it up more steps. But if you're watching us on video, thank you on YouTube.
I don't even know where to
look. If you don't want to be watching us, you can just listen to what we're doing on our episodes on Podbean. But if you're listening to us and are curious to watch what's going on as well, check us out at YouTube. What's our YouTube?
The Edible Valley podcast, of course.
Perfect. So stir fries. I remember you mentioned this because you said you found some fewer mail.
I did. I got asked, it was a question. I got an email.
Yeah, cool.
From one of our listeners out there. And
Awesome.
It was about, really enjoyed one of our last episodes, and then asked about, but what's a good sauce to go with my stir fry?
Right.
And I was like, well, let's just talk about stir fry.
Sure.
Yeah. So, from the very top, what makes a stir fry?
What makes a stir fry? Well, that's an excellent thing.
Sure.
I guess it goes back to, it's definitely most people sort of view it as a Chinese cooking technique, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Done in a wok with very high heat and with vegetable and protein, and it's like a little bit with a rounded pan, so you can move the vegetables around, so you get rid of the moisture and give that little crispness and sweetness, that caramelized flavor to your vegetables as you're sautéing.
There's a YouTuber that I watch. His name's Alex, and I think you can actually just search him up by looking up Alex, his French chef. And I actually first got interested in watching what he was doing because he did a full episode on the perfect stir fry. And to him, the defining quality of the stir fry is actually there's a certain flavor that is achieved, and not by adding a flavor element, but in the way that you get that slight burn without burning.
Right.
And it's some sort of, it's whatever. Je ne sais quoi. I don't know how to define it. I know how it tastes. Yeah, but
that's
I know
what it is.
But it's not. It's almost a smokiness.
Yeah, well, that's a little bit of it's a sugar within your vegetables.
And it's fantastic.
Burning,
it's really hard to do in a regular pan.
Yeah.
But a thin steel pan, like a wok, it's very, I've been able to achieve it that way, but I've not been able to achieve it with like a, cast iron or...
So I do stir fries quite a lot, but I don't have a wok.
Right.
Do you need a wok?
No, you absolutely don't.
Definitely not. No, it's nice to have a wok because it gives that even heat, round heat. But then there's the same choice as just using a nice light sautéing pan works very well. I've even, a nice cast iron frying pan which holds that heat really well, so it doesn't bounce around everywhere. That's definitely one way of doing it.
The only problem with cast iron is its weight. So where it's nice to get some nice flicks where you're turning your vegetables rapidly, that's really hard to achieve with a cast iron. But at least it's got that heat element that you're looking for, that you would normally look for or you would get with a wok.
And what do you get from a wok?
I think it's that. I think it's that thin metal. It conducts the heat so fast that I find you get this, it's almost like a tiny char to it, but it's a pleasant char. It's not an unpleasant char. It's almost like that smokiness.
You also get the shape, right?
Yeah.
So a little bit of the shape is that the temperature, how the pattern, so you got high heat on the bottom and it cools the outside. So you're churning from the high heat on the bottom and rotating your vegetables out.
Right.
Also because of how that V in the bowl it allows the moisture to be released. So it's sort of like if you try stir frying in a pot, like
Right.
a stewing pot, it's straight walls, so the steam comes up to a point and then cools and condenses and falls back.
Goes
in.
back down.
Yeah,
Right.
it's sort of like with a sautéing pan. Your sautéing pan has very
Yeah.
steep angles, and that's to release the moisture. So when you sear something, it hits, and you get that caramelizing, that browning
Yeah.
effect taking place.
There was a brief bound of time where I had a business that also included stir fries, and I was doing my stir fries with wok, and there was definitely a learning curve for me there. I burned quite a bit of food, but I also undercooked quite a bit of food until I figured it out, and how it just likes, stir fries really enjoy that rapid movement. They don't let it settle, and things happen fast. As long as you keep things moving, it's going to be ready for you in a few minutes. But this is all just about technique. The customer question, I keep saying customer, I apologize. Our viewer question was flavors.
Well, I think we got to start, like, we're talking
okay.
about the flavors, because that's what
Sure.
you're saying, is that caramelizing, getting that flavor out of your vegetables.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's part of it right there. Like, a good stir fry can just be the vegetables sauteing in the oil and a little salt and pepper. And then you can do anything from fresh herbs or whatever you want. I mean, a lot of traditionals add a sweetener, to make it a little bit sweeter. But I always think, like, the first thing is starting off with, like, choosing the proper ingredients and then also choosing the proper oil. 'Cause I
Right.
think that's a mistake a lot of people make.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Let's talk about oils. Because I think when it comes to, say, Asian-inspired cooking, I think of a few key oils. I think of, like, a chili oil, and I think of, like, sesame oil, and I think of peanut oil. But, like, sesame oil and chili oil, those are finishing oils, and I would never cook with those. They're far too delicate. You're going to lose the flavor. Those are definitely for near the end of what you're cooking. You add those. Primarily, I would use peanut oil or a neutral oil of some sort for actually cooking the vegetables.
I think you're completely right there. Like, it's definitely looking at your oils with a high smoke point.
Right.
And then oil it's a loaded question.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, when I say a neutral oil, I'm not talking about some sort of pH balance or anything. I'm talking about neutral flavored.
Yeah.
Like something that's, even olive oil is too fragrant. Like
Yeah.
you might not think of olive oil as fragrant, but it is.
If you saute with
Yeah.
rich virgin olive oil,
Yeah, it's gonna start tasting rancid even.
it's gonna burn. It's
Yeah.
gonna not taste. You're gonna bring out some of the ugly
Yeah,
flavors within it.
you want like a grapeseed oil, or you want a canola oil, or vegetable oil, or peanut oil. Any of those flavors, of those, they have very little flavor, and
Yeah.
they can get really hot without changing the properties
I've
of
been
them.
really excited lately about avocado oil.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
got a great smoke point, and it's apparently
Nice.
healthy for you.
Yeah.
I know there are some questions about canola oil and grapeseed oil, just giving you too many of those fatty acids that you're not supposed to have in your diet, or
Yeah.
as much as you should be taking in one serving. So
I've been fooling around when it comes to some of my stir fries and noodle dishes, starting with a bit of coconut oil. Just because, you start to get into that South Asia flavors where they use a lot of coconut milk. And so only in places where I'm going to use coconut milk will I start with using coconut oil to saute my veg.
I actually really enjoy using coconut oil.
Yeah.
Because it brings a definitely very interesting flavor to things, right? Like,
Right.
it really steps out there. And
Yeah.
gives you that beautiful coconut flavor. So.
Oh, so good.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'd actually like to bring a new element into it. We're
Okay.
going to briefly touch on sautéing. Now, for the layman such as myself, it's all the same thing. Maybe sautéing is just a European version of stir frying.
That's a good point.
Sure,
actually.
I'm wrong.
I mean, sure, frying and sautéing and like those are totally different things. But I'm going to defer to John.
You're looking for the correct answer.
I could give an answer. John's going to give the right answer.
I feel like the real difference with sautéing is that sautéing is jumping, right?
Yeah.
Like part of the thing is
Right.
it's constant. Your pan is constantly moving with sautéing.
Right.
Not that stir frying is any different, but
Yeah, heat's about the same, right? It's about medium heat.
well, and that's it. Like stir frying is maybe a little bit lower heat than
Okay.
maybe stir, but then doing that, and then also like sautéing, and then you get into the other one of like pan searing.
Right.
Or, that's, it's really the amount of oil you put in there too.
Yeah.
So with a stir fry, you probably use a little bit more oil because you want to coat all the vegetables. Whereas with sauteing, you want to have just a light amount of oil so it doesn't stick to the pan and you're having it jump.
Here's something too. If I think of, let's just say, a mushroom, okay? And I'm going to chop up my mushroom. A sauteed mushroom to me is going to be cooked and fully cooked and limp, right? Almost. A fried one will likely have a bit of texture to it. It'll likely have been not burnt, but it'll still have a bit of a texture. Whereas stir fried, it's almost like it's still its shape and it hasn't gone through anything, but it is a bit softer. Like that's sort of my ideal. That's what I'm looking for. So if you take that in the same context as say a carrot, like you use the method that you want for the result that you want, right? So in stir frying, that's ultimately a lot of your vegetables haven't really changed shape. They've just softened a bit. Yeah. That's what I think. That's my rule of thumb when I'm cooking.
That works for me.
Okay, so I have a few extra questions.
Okay.
So do you use a similar type of pan? Can you saute something in a wok?
Yeah, I definitely say you can.
It's sort of working backwards, but sure, you can do it.
And what end result are you aiming for?
Well, and I think with a stir fry too is you're usually finishing with a sauce.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas with sauteing, you're keeping it a lot drier.
Okay.
Right.
So that's
a good point.
Big thing, right? Like I think with a stir fry is you get your vegetables and everything, and then you hit it with the sauce and you deglaze your pan right there, and you shake the table a bit and get cookies out.
And you get the producer telling you stop.
I just felt smacked.
All right.
I would say too that one of the things that really stumped me when I got into stir frying, this was years ago, but one of the things that really blew me away was that the proteins need a lot less cooking time than you think. And it's actually the vegetables that you need to be concerned with. You want to get your vegetables perfect, then you push them to the side, as John was saying, which really was, I was like, no, I want to remove them from the pan. No, you want to just push them to the side, throw your protein in, and the only difference is that your protein in almost every stir fry is going to be very thinly cut. So it's going to fast.
Well, that's it. In a stir fry, you want fast cook.
Yeah.
I actually like to go a little bit different. I like my protein in there first.
Yeah.
Because then you get the flavor.
Right. That's going to cure. Yeah.
And then I pull them out.
Yeah.
I remove them completely, and then I'll do my vegetables in there.
Yeah.
And I do this with a lot of things, like stewing is a big one for me. Like when I do a stew, I'll sear off my meat to get that rich caramelized flavor within the meats, pull them out, and then I'll saute off all my vegetables. And then when I go to add my liquid, I'll just put everything in at once to get that flavor. And so that's
and generally speaking, like you want that bond, you want that caramelization that's still in the pan to start flavoring that sauce and the veggies. But when it comes to stir fries, I just do it opposite because I was just watching other people do it. I'm like, I guess this is how we do it.
Yeah, well, and my thoughts on it is that I'm going to go with beef is a good example, right?
Okay.
So you don't want to, if you want to have a nice tender, you want to shoot for medium, right? You don't want to overcook it and have it, like once you get up past medium, you start getting really chewy. Yeah. So I sort of fear if you can sear it, get that nice caramelized on the outside, pull it out, cook everything else out, and then as you go to serve it, you fire it in, and then it keeps that nice tender. Right. It just keeps it, warms it back up to temperature, and you serve it there on top of, whatever your starch may be.
Wow. Well, that leads us very neatly on to ingredients. Can you basically put anything in a stir fry?
I would say almost anything's game, but for me personally, and I don't have no idea how John does this or anybody else, to me a stir fry is going to have some sort of like a root vegetable, just to make. And I'm not saying that it defines it. I'm saying to make it taste good. For me, for my personal things, I'm going to have a green of some sort, a leafy green. Well, that can be a bold one. That can be like a bok choy or a cabbage or anything. I'm going to have a root vegetable like a carrot, maybe a rutabaga, maybe something daikon, something like that. And then I'm going to have some alliums. I'm going to have either garlic, onion, chive, shallot, something like that.
Ginger.
And then I'm going to do a protein and whatever meat, vegetable, doesn't matter what type of protein, but I'm going to do a protein and then my sauce, which I think is where we're going to cap this episode is whenever we get there. We'll get to sauce in a minute, right?
Yeah, I would say most of what you're looking for, your ingredients, are stuff that cooks fast.
Right.
Because and that you want to cut them to the right size. And then that's another thing is we talked about putting the meat in first, pulling it out, and cooking your vegetables. But then also cooking your vegetables in order.
Right. So
So
that is a good point. Honestly,
so you don't throw spinach in and then throw carrots in there.
And I don't think people understand that the thicker and denser your vegetable is,
yes,
the more prime position it's got. The further into the front of what you're doing it goes.
Exactly. So if you have something like a carrot, which takes a little bit longer to cook through compared to, say, a piece of broccoli.
Right.
Like I would throw the carrots in there or throw the onions in there. If you're doing onions, always onions first.
Yeah.
And the reason onions, they need to cook, because I love saying this, but onions are 6 times sweeter than sugar, right? So you want to get rid of that bitterness from within.
And let that come out.
So that takes a bit of cooking time.
Yeah.
So, boom. That would be my first ingredient I throw in there. Because you can cook them to death, and the more you cook them, the better they get, right?
Right.
No one complains about having, well, maybe some people, but no one complains about caramelized onions on
anything,
right? Like
another one of those rules or tip, I guess a tip that you're not going to necessarily find everywhere else. When you're getting your sautéing or you're first stir frying your veggies down, garlic last. Because you're generally either cutting it super thin or you're mincing it, and it will burn so quickly.
Oh, and it's really
and it'll ruin the flavor of everything if it burns.
Yeah.
So I always throw the garlic in last, even though normally when I'm cooking, say Italian or whatever, it's going in slow and low with that oil to start flavoring that oil.
Right.
Do not do that. You're gonna burn
closer to the end. You get a much nicer product. Yeah,
I've been doing it wrong after all this time. So a lot of the vegetables that you just mentioned might be something different for people. They might actually not have the time to prep. What I'm going to say is, can you use frozen vegetables for like a stir fry mix, for example?
Well, you're not going to get a stir fry.
Yeah, I don't know
they're better for stewing, right?
Yeah,
because
I don't know what a stir fry mix is, but I think that there are definitely, like, when my kids are so finicky when it comes. Well, I shouldn't say that. My daughter will eat any vegetable. My son is finicky, so we have frozen peas on hand because I know he's not going to eat half the vegetables. So anything I throw frozen peas in, like, nice. There's no problem there.
I was even thinking, like, I feel like peas is something because they don't release a lot of water.
Right.
So that's where I'm going from, like frozen vegetables. If you take the old broccoli, carrot, celery, or that package every mom used to buy back in the 80s and throw in every
carrot, corn,
casserole.
and peas. Yeah. So that has a lot of water in it.
Yeah.
And that's going to ruin your stir fry.
Yeah, because that water's all going to release at once instead of slowly releasing and giving you that caramelization.
It's going to steam everything, and everything's going to go mushy.
But a lot of grocery stores have pre-made stir-fry packages of pre-cut vegetables ready to go. And they're pretty easy to do because it's... And not that I'm saying, hey, buy a bag of this, but it is a nice option for a rush dinner.
Mm-hmm. What would be in those?
You're going to have, like, I'm going to say peppers, broccoli.
Sure.
Maybe some a cabbage.
Yeah.
Like a su choy or Napa cabbage.
I mean, this is what I do. I mean, everyone's got busy lives. Yeah. And sometimes it's like I haven't got time to do all the vegetables, so I'm going to go and get fast food. No, you just get the frozen veg out, and it might not be as good as the fresh version, but it's a heck of a lot better than what you're going to buy for $5.
Yeah.
In the fast food.
And as I know from Will sitting in the counter cooking vegetables going, this would be so much easier if I didn't have to cut anything.
Yeah. Well, that's history. Everything I do now is frozen.
Right. Well, in all honesty, if your option is some sort of takeout or drive-through versus buying a bag of frozen vegetables and some protein, do that. Yeah. Do the vegetables and protein, especially a stir fry. The amount of time you're in the drive-through, it's going to be almost the same amount of time. Yeah. A stir fry is like 6 to 8 to 10 minutes, depending on your protein.
Yeah. And there are people out there that want to save a bit of money, and it's a lot cheaper. Yeah. It's $10 for a bag in Costco that'll last you a few weeks. Yeah. And it's,
if I get the time when we post this episode, I'll throw down a couple of notes there regarding what we would suggest for some frozen vegetables.
That would be really, really useful.
Okay.
We should move on to sauces here because we're going to run out of time.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
This is moving along fast. I didn't think we actually had 15 minutes just about vegetables and oil in a stir fry. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah. So on to the user
Well,
or
Darren, you've
the
done
question.
it. What are your I mean, I like to think of a traditional stir fry.
Sure.
That most people think about is basically ginger,
Okay.
soya,
Yeah.
maybe some sugar, brown sugar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A sweetener of some sort. It could be honey,
Okay.
maple syrup, any sort of that sweet that sort of cuts through, that balances sort of that gingery taste. And that's where I always think of my stir fries. Now, there's lots more ingredients I would definitely play with on that, but that traditional sort of, I want to go teriyaki.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one.
And that's what a lot of people picture stir fries as.
I mean, that's literally, you just described essentially a teriyaki sauce.
Pretty much,
Yeah. Ginger, soy sauce, brown sugar, tiny bit of honey. And you would do a little cornstarch, soy sauce. That's it. That's teriyaki.
That's another nice thing is just like cornstarch, tapioca, arrowroot.
Even potato starch.
Potato starch. Doing a slurry.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if most people know a slurry, but adding a little bit of water to the starch
Mm-hmm.
so that it doesn't cook as soon as it hits there.
And you get little dough balls.
And so once you get everything cooked and you got your sauce there, you splash it and that just sticks to the vegetables.
Yeah.
And what I find, and this is like I use quite a bit of this kind of a slurry, is that it sticks to your tongue.
Yeah.
And
If you get Chinese takeout, if you get Japanese takeout, if you get whatever, 99% of those dishes, that sauce has been finished with a bit of a slurry, and that's just key and like that's part of their cooking, and that's what thickens their very loose sauces.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it into something unctuous and something that sticks to the tongue, sticks to your fork, sticks to your chopstick.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as stir fry sauces, I understand that some people aren't cool with the idea, but oyster sauce to me is one of the basics. I base almost every great sauce. People are like, oh my God, what was in that? I'm like, that was an oyster sauce. Like that was the basis that I used. That or a hoisin, which is essentially like a Korean / Chinese barbecue sauce.
Right.
Oyster sauce is...
Oyster sauce is literally oyster sauce. It's oysters. It's
the
soy.
essence.
It's soy sauce. So oyster liquor. Do you know what oyster liquor is? It's like when you open an oyster and there's that little bit of water.
Oh yeah.
Seawater.
Yeah.
That's called the oyster liquor.
Okay. Yep. Cool. Nice.
Essentially, that is part of what's being used to flavor that saltiness.
That's great because that has got a strong flavor to it.
Right. Yeah.
But it's funny, yeah. If you take a bottle of it and open it up, and you're like, and this was the other one I was going to say is fish sauce.
Fish sauce, so key, absolutely.
Key to definitely that stir fry kind of thing. But it's like what they do is like to taste them on their own or smell them. No.
Yeah.
Not my kind
They're
of
disgusting.
tea.
Honestly, you smell fish sauce, you're like, I'm never going to eat that ever.
We'll
and
never.
I shouldn't say that. That's a blanket statement, but they're really off-putting. But you wouldn't believe the flavor it adds.
Well, they bring that umami flavor to it, and
so
they just
good.
intensify all the other flavors within your dish, and just bring them forward.
Okay, well, we have got a lot to talk about.
Sure.
We've got everything into 20 minutes. There's a lot we have discussed.
I think I don't know if we were able to properly address the question. So I'm going to do this. Everybody knows, or maybe not. Did we talk about this before? I wrote a cookbook that I still haven't published about sauces.
It's a plug.
We talked about you writing a cookbook. Just
So I wrote a cookbook. It's finished. It's been done for about a year. It's sitting on my computer. I'm going to pull my three out of, I think I wrote 5 different stir fry recipes in there. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm going to pull a couple out and I'll just post them on this episode so that we can properly address our friend's question as to.
I just want to add my 2 other favorites.
Yeah, for sure.
A nice peanut.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Oh yeah, peanut stir
Peanut
fry.
sauce is amazing.
Like just having a nice peanut sauce with like a little bit of heat in there.
I'm so proud. My daughter
lemongrass.
loves it so much. Yeah. She the other day called me up. She's like, I'm cooking noodles. I think this is how you do a peanut sauce. I'm like, oh, you're making your own peanut sauce. And I'm not even there. So she ran it. She had all the ingredients down pat. Yeah. She knew what she was doing. Yeah, loves that peanut sauce.
I love it. And then the other one, just like a nice coconut.
Yeah.
Just even if you just do like a nice green curry.
Yeah, or a sriracha, which is essentially just a garlicky sauce. Like oh yeah.
So I don't know if we've helped anyone or we've got them sort of thinking about what they can do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm worried that we didn't cover everybody's needs, so let's throw a couple of recipes up under
Well, and
when
maybe
we
if
post.
some people want to write in, we can post up on our Facebook site some of people's favorite stir fry sauces. We'll put a posting up there in the near future when this comes out.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a great time.
Spot on. Great.
All right. Thanks for listening to everybody to our first video attempt. So there's a little awkwardness, but I think we're there.
Our first 3 video camera production.
Yeah.
Because we've done other things, but I'm looking forward to this. This is fun. So
Okay.
I hope everyone enjoyed listening.
I've been Darren Howlett.
I'm William Stringer. I'm the producer.
I'm Chef Jonathan Frazier. Thanks for listening.
And that wraps up another episode of the Edible Valley podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and a special thanks goes to the local businesses that help support our podcast. They make it possible for us to showcase your local food community. We'd love you to follow us on your preferred social media at Edible Valley, where you can check out our blog, find recipes and tips, behind the scenes, and of course keep a lookout for where we are going to turn up next in your Edible Valley.
Insert our roles.
Essentially, we're starting our roles in that you're going to say, "Is everybody here? Is everybody ready to go?" That kind of thing.
Yeah, we're
That's our
demonstrating
start.
our roles.
Yes.
I am the producer. Okay. Wow, that sounded quite Shakespearean.
It did.
Okay, is everybody here?
I am.
Fantastic. Darren, you are right here. You got everything going on.
I do.
And this has been an Edible Valley